Hello guys, Tops here. Today I want to present you the Gunner, one of my favorite builds, and I think this is a build that should be included in every company. And yeah, this is how I built him. You can see it up here. I will show you in a fight how the Gunner works. And the Gunner, as you might imagine, basically you need a gun for him, right? It's built around the gun. Right. And in this case, I have Overwhelm and I have Fearsome. So in my mind, the gun works extremely well at applying status effects. And you will see in a second why that is. So, the gun has AoE. That makes it so strong. You can see if I want to shoot the gun, you can see the arrows. It hits in a cone up to 6 targets, right? And in this case, I would hit 5 targets. That's insane, right? So you have AoE at close range with like decent damage. You can see this is a famed gun. We have a fatigue and additional armor penetration, but the damage is relatively high considering that we hit at a huge area. So if we hit up to 6 targets, insane. The other thing, we ignore cover. So we can basically shoot through stuff like this rock or through palisades. We can basically walk up a hill and assault a camp with guns. As you can see, we hit 5 targets, theoretically. In this case, of course, we didn't. We missed a bunch. But that's fine. Right? We have high initiative on this guy, so we are immediately, if you want to play with Overwhelm, which in this case we have, want to have high initiative, so we fight again. Now we have 5 guys that are overwhelmed. 5 opponents, basically. And the real fun begins if you have more than one gunner, right? Then the good stuff happens, right? Against skeletons, guns are not great. Like I think technically speaking they do piercing damage, and skeletons have high resistance against piercing damage. Yeah, they have, what was it, like 50% damage reduction against piercing damage. But that's kind of the huge advantage of the guns. The guns, if you build them with Overwhelm and Fearsome, they are useful in every single scenario. Because either Overwhelm or Fearsome will do its job. And because of the AoE, even against stuff like skeletons, you can see we do a certain amount of damage and we destroy armor. So it makes it easier for the other bros to do more damage, right? Because we stripped away a lot of armor, right? So other bros can fight better. Yeah, so you can see, of course this is a late game squad. We have a lot of things that we can do with a gunner, right? Okay, I'm rambling a little bit too much. So, the following. In the beginning of the build, you have to decide if you want to play with Overwhelm or not. And you don't have to use Overwhelm on guns. Because Overwhelm requires you to invest a lot of stats into initiative. It also requires you to take Relentless and Overwhelm, right? So, Relentless protects your high initiative, that means you always go first. And with Overwhelm, right, you overwhelm. Overwhelm basically reduces the enemy skill by 10%, which a lot of the time is like a dramatic reduce in hit chance, right? And this is the combination, right? You go for these kind of perks if you want to play with Overwhelm. But it also means that you have to get a lot of initiative going, right? So you have to skill ranged attack, initiative every single time in order to reliably go first against most targets. So Overwhelm right away makes it relatively stat intensive, the build overall, and also perk intensive. If you don't go Overwhelmed, that's 2 free perks that you can basically spend on anything you want. That's another thing. Guns are extremely efficient. They are extremely ammunition efficient because you don't shoot at all, you shoot once per turn. If you berserk twice, you shoot maybe twice, but that's about it. So you don't consume a lot of ammunition. They also tend to win fights early, so there is rarely a fight where I go and use up both of my ammunitions. Like outside of your huge late game camps, this is not happening. So they also, you can get away with a brother that has relatively low range skill. As you can see, I have a Nomad with 88 range skill here. And the reason why you can get away with low range skill is because of the perk Fast Adaptation. Fast Adaptation gives you a plus 10% hit chance for every shot that you miss, and that basically works with guns. So if you hit multiple targets with a gun and you miss the first 2, you get on the third hit a plus 20% hit chance effectively. That means even at night, where your range skill is basically halved, guns are relatively effective, especially because they ignore cover. So I'm certain that you can take basically any brother in the game who can get to 80 plus range skill, and you can make him into a gunner with Fast Adaptation. It's insane, right? So you can take any kind of lowborn who rolled triple stars in range skill, and he gets to 80 plus range skill, and he's gonna be a good gunner. So from a build perspective, you can take basically any bro and make him into an efficient build. And that's why I like guns so much. They just work. They're very efficient, they're very effective, both at the same time. You don't have to recruit a hunter, right? Who needs to go, ideally he has like double or triple stars, and then you make him into like a super nice archer, or you want to have like one of these super good range bros that has like a lot of range skills, so you reliably hit stuff. No, you just hit stuff with the gun. And because you have the AoE, you just, especially with Fast Adaptation, you will hit something at least. You also ignore cover, so stuff like bullseye is not necessary, and you can literally shoot through cover. That means like the negative hit chance that you get from cover is just ignored. You can also shoot targets that wouldn't be shootable with other guns, because you can shoot through trees and stuff like that. It's just insane. So they're also like relatively cheap. You can get guns commonly for like 3,000 gold. So like they are comparable to stuff like warbows and crossbows. The only issue is guns don't drop. The only enemies who use guns are the golden armies, and you don't want to fight them in most campaigns, right? So yeah, but just buying a gun for 3,000 counts, absolutely worth it to snowball a run early. This would be one of these builds if I would play for like speed rather than for immersion. I would try to rush guns and get like triple gunners going. I had runs where I have triple guns and do triple guns with Overwhelm and Fearsome, destroy anything. Anything that you put in front of them. You can just walk up hills where like brigands are on top, these hill camps, or like goblin camps on hills, and you just blast them with the guns. And they hide behind their little fortification, and you just smash them. They are, in my mind, the best range build in the game. For single target damage, throwers are better. Also because throwing weapons, they just drop from random enemies. But, you know, for like overall damage, these ones are better. So, I'm completely all over the place today. This is a very nice build. And you have, what makes it so nice is you have so much flexibility. You can basically take whatever. If you're not going for high initiative, which in this case you have to take Relentless and Overwhelm and pump initiative every single time, you just need range skill. That's it. So you can just take range skill and whatever you high roll, right? You can take HP, you can take resolve, defense, range, melee defense. You don't need to level fatigue because guns are also extremely fatigue efficient. You can see, like shooting the gun cost me 3 action points and 3 fatigue. And I think the reload is more expensive. But still, like, guns are very, very fatigue efficient. Very, very fatigue efficient. You need crossbow mastery though, because normally the reloading of a gun takes 9 action points, but with crossbow mastery it takes 6 action points, so you can actually shoot and reload the gun every single turn. Yeah. So, this is essential. Also, another essential perk in my mind is fast adaptation, because guns also get additional hit chance. You can see has plus 10% chance hit and then minus 10 per tile of distance. This chance is unaffected by object or characters in the line of fire. So you straight up ignore cover and any kind of guy who is in front, you just shoot. Yeah, so you want to have fast adaptation on this bro. Unless you have a brother who has like insane range skill, I would always take fast adaptation. Even if you have a bro who has like high range skill, fast adaptation just makes it even so that you can fight at night against nomads and stuff who have dodge and everything and shields. Like, they are so effective with fast adaptation. Love this perk on guns. I would always take fast adaptation on this guy. I always take Pathfinder so I can position my gun. It's actually very important in my mind. Something you can do is you can take rotation. On a range bro, it's never bad because you can put a dog on a field and then behind you, basically, on the field behind you, and then you can rotate the dog out. So if your gunner gets stuck in combat, right, he gets charged by an orc, you can always put the dog behind you, rotate the dog in front of you, and then you're out of combat and your gunner is out of danger. You don't have to, but that's something you can do. If you play Iron Man, I recommend 9 lives, just in case, right? If you level high initiative and you go for Overwhelm Relentless, you can pick up dodge, although in my mind it's not necessary, it's just nice to have. Stuff like Colossus is always nice, but not necessary on this build in my mind, because you have so much free stats that you can just level HP without taking Colossus. You can see we have 83 HP. It's also a backline build, so I always take Nimble. Not always, but most of the time I take Nimble, which is actually something you can do on them. Yeah, the only thing you need is crossbow mastery and you're good to go, basically. Like fast adaptation, crossbow mastery, and like everything else is up to you. What I would always take with guns is Fearsome, because with guns you have so many chances to proc a Fearsome. So any kind of status effect that you can inflict with guns is super nice, because you have so many chances you will actually proc Fearsome eventually, right? So stuff like Overwhelm, Fearsome is quite nice. What I also experimented a little bit with, it's a little bit more inconsistent, but Crippling Strikes is not that bad on guns. Again, you have 6 targets potentially, so you can inflict injuries if you want to. And I think if you don't go for the Overwhelm build, that would free up, in this case, 3 perks. You can easily go for stuff like Crippling Strikes, Executioner, right? Just for more damage overall, right? And for more, basically, debuff. Because there's also something I have to say about guns. They do piercing damage, but they inflict also burn injuries, which is a little bit weird. They sometimes inflict piercing or burn injuries. And the burn injuries are one of the best in the game. Like, all of them dramatically affect the stats of your opponent or action points. So you basically, even light burn injuries render an opponent useless very fast. So burn injuries, and they inflict them, super nice to have. I really like them. Yeah, I don't like to make hybrids, like ranged hybrids. I always go for the full, like, guy. But in this case, theoretically, you could play with quick hands and backpack a crossbow for him, although it's not that effective because then you have 2 types of ammunition, so you would have need to swap ammunition as well. So yeah, I don't like this. But again, you have crossbow mastery, so technically your gunner is also a crossbowman. That also makes them like super nice early game. You can basically play them as crossbowmen as soon as you get a gun. You swap out the crossbow for the gun, right? You get the crossbows free from the brigands. So it's the build has a very nice build up, so to speak, in the early game. And yeah, like it's super stat efficient. Like you can get away. You don't have to level fatigue at all if you take nimble. The guns are not very heavy. Okay, they're kind of heavy, but like ammunition weighs nothing. You have nimble, so you wear light armor. So you, like a guy with 100 fatigue, like your full equipment is like 30 fatigue maybe, and you're never gonna use up the 70 fatigue. Just basically never. It's not gonna happen because guns are so fatigue efficient. Even if you berserk and killing frenzy, of course I take berserk killing frenzy for more damage. You can say, or some people say, it is a little bit less effective with guns, the berserk, because you shoot only once per turn, and if you berserk you can shoot but you can't reload. There is some truth to that. On the other side though, just shooting again sometimes makes a dramatic difference, because berserk gives you 4 action points, which effectively means you can shoot again. So you can shoot twice, basically, which is nice, right? I also like to use the berserk in order to reposition myself. So a lot of the time I will use berserk. If I cannot shoot a second time, I will use berserk to get into a better position, to basically travel like 2 or 3 tiles to get my gun into a better position, because that's the one thing you kind of need some practice in, is positioning matters much more on guns than on any other range bow. Because of the cone of fire you saw there, sometimes if you're not in a good position, your shots won't hit 6 guys, they will hit 2 guys or 1 guy, right? So you have to get a little bit practice and experience on how to position your guns, right? Basically it's a backline, but like on this side or that side, like that's gonna affect my shots, and are the enemies here or are the enemies there? That requires a little bit of practice with the guns, basically. But you get very fast used to the playstyle of guns. And there's another playstyle, which is basically you have quick hands and you have a gun in your backpack. And what you basically do is you, if you start with the gun, it's always loaded. And what you do is you basically quick hand to your backup gun, reload that gun as well. And then for the next turn, you can basically double fire your gun, right? You just fire the gun, quick hand to the other gun and fire. It's something you can do, but it requires you to have a second gun, which means like it's more fatigue, and also now it doubled your cost effectively, and it's something you can do. It has some value with Fearsome, but I much rather prefer the Berserk style. But remember, there's this one quick end build that it can work if you like to play that way. But this is more like of a late games thing, or like a later stage of the game, because you need to have 2 guns, right? And I much rather have 2 gunners than 1 guy with 2 guns. But you can do this, right? You have 1 guy who can double shoot. You can essentially do the same thing if you berserk, but against some enemies you won't berserk a lot, so against tougher enemies. Anyhow, so yeah, rotation, always nice to get yourself out of trouble. I like nimble, but you can actually, if you don't go for the overwhelm build, you can get your guy into Battleforge armor. Because again, guns don't need a lot of fatigue. As you can see, I have 70 usable fatigue, and I will never use this fatigue up. So if I actually start leveling fatigue during the build process, I can actually get this guy into full Battleforge armor, and then, you know, he becomes more tankier, much more tanky, right? So Battleforge is an option. If you go Battleforge, I would also take Steelbow, right? Yeah, just in case something hits your head. It's very important on Battleforge still. Yeah, overall, nowadays I don't take Overwhelm as much on guns, despite it being relatively efficient. But I always take Fearsome, and I much rather lean into like the damaging side of the build, because Overwhelm is always like it locks you into the nimble build, and it requires you to have a lot of initiative. It's very perk and very stat intensive, so I tend to go away from Overwhelm nowadays, and I prefer much more the normal Berserk, Killing Frenzy, Fearsome setup. And the 3 perks that I would basically gain in this case, again, can be invested into Executioner Crippling Strikes, which just spikes the damage through the roofs and also the debuffs from the burning injuries. And you get another free perk for like more survivability. You can do Nimble Forge as well on these, right? And give them like your late game Nimble Forge armor that you can't really give anybody else. By the way, this is our Nimble Forge one. We have a lot of Nimble Forge here. Yeah, or you can take Colossus, 9 lives, whatever you want, right? You can also take Gifted, or Gifted is always an option. But especially on this build, I think it's not needed. Because it like, again, I think this is another one of these builds where like it is the least stat intensive range build. And it's the most efficient range build, right? You use basically no ammunition, which is an issue if you use throwers, you lose a lot of ammunition. Or archers, you use a lot of ammunition and you lose a lot of ammunition. With guns, you shoot like 3 or 4 times per battle, that's it. And yeah, that basically means even if you have triple gunner, you basically almost never have to buy ammunition. Because you just don't use as much ammunition. It's also like, again, if you have triple gun setup, you can just walk up to like big camps and just blast them and just shoot them all dead. Through the cover, right? You can kill the brigands and the goblins. Like guns, again, like level 5 with crossbow mastery and fast adaptation and like a guy who's like 60 range skill. That's all you need. That will basically solve a lot of problems. And you can, by the way, like guns are, again, super cheap. You can get them for 3,000 gold. You buy 3 of them, give them to 3 of your range guys, and you're just gonna steamroll every single fight you come across. There's almost nothing in the early and mid game that can withstand triple gun, and even late game, in most fights, guns are just super strong and they're just gonna kill your enemies right away, or they're gonna debuff them with Fearsome, Overwhelm if you like to, Crippling Strikes if you like to, and they will strip away the armor. So stuff like your Cleaver has a much easier time, or stuff like Great Swords or Sword Lances, right? Like the lower armor effective weapons have a much easier time to kill enemies. So guns are just amazing. Yeah, they're similar to the Fencer. They're just but they're not a meme build. Fencers are kind of a meme build. These guys are not a meme build. They're so effective, so efficient, and they are so much fun. There's nothing more fun in this game than to just walk up to an enemy with triple guns and just shoot them. All of them. If you play stuff like Peasant Militia, you can also have like 6 gunners in the backline, and then yeah, it's a lot of fun. I highly encourage you guys to try this build out. And yeah, you can basically do nothing wrong with this build. There are only a handful of perks that are essential, I would say. Fearsome is relatively essential. Crossbow mastery and like fast adaptation. The rest you can pick and choose whatever you want. Like level ranged skill, and then initiative if you have Overwhelm. If you don't have Overwhelm, level whatever you want. If you want to go Battle Forge, start leveling Fatigue. If you don't want to take Colossus, level some hit points, some defense. Do whatever you want, guys. It's insane. Alright. Thank you so much for watching. I stream on YouTube and Twitch. You can watch me there. This is a live playthrough. And yeah, I hope you find this guide useful. It was a little bit of a rambling and a little bit of a longer one as well. Well, I feel like these guides, it's important to go through a lot of the things, right? Especially for the newer players, right? And this is a guide designed for newer players. Alright. Have a nice day, guys. Bye-bye.